I do not want to hear this talk from you again. Doubt is heavier than a week's snow.
Forgive me, my chieftain. We will be ready for the next attempt.
But this will not be an attempt. It must be done. Do you understand?
My chieftain.
Good. Outlander, I suppose you wish to speak? That is not for the eyes and ears of others. Certainly not an Outlander's.
And welcome to Real Dudes Podcast. This is your host, Karrington, and I'm joined here by my co-host, Andrew.
How's it going?
And I've got a very special guest here today. You probably recognize him from the PlayStation 4 game Horizon Zero Dawn as the character Aratek. I have with me Richard Neal. Richard, how are you?
I'm great. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for taking the time to spend it with us this afternoon.
Absolutely.
So, Richard, for those of you who may not be familiar with you or your work, could you give us a little introduction about you and maybe how you yourself got into acting and how long you've been acting?
Oh, I don't want to tell you that, and then I have to give away my age. It's been a long time. I started doing theater. Actually, I first started acting as a freshman at UC Santa Barbara. And then I went to ACT in San Francisco, the American Conservatory Theater, and then I did a brief time at the Herbert Berghoff studio in Manhattan, and then I went to Neighborhood Playhouse in Manhattan for a couple of years and studied with Sanford Meisner. And then that started my professional career after that. Initially, I was doing a lot of theater and a bunch of soap operas in New York. I did some recurring stuff on All My Children, which was shot in Brooklyn back then, and I got to work with Harold E. Rollins, who later on was in the movie Ragtime. And so, you know, when you're starting out, you just take, you start doing anything you can. You do commercials and some soap opera work, and then, you know, start building up a resume, and I got a few plays that took me out of town, which was nice. I did a European tour of a play, and then later on actually ended up part of a theater company based in Charleston, South Carolina, a company called Chopstick Theater. And I did a lot of theater. I played Stanley Kowalski in A Streetcar Named Desire for almost a year, and did a whole range of parts, from commedia dell'arte to Shakespeare to contemporary work. I did a production of True West, a production of American Buffalo by David Mamet, and so it's just I'm a sort of a journeyman actor. I've done a lot of theater and a lot of you know, just little guest spots on TV, and just in the last few years I started getting into video games. Which was an extension of getting into voice work, and I've really enjoyed it.
And I've noticed that you have been doing a lot of video games recently. Could you talk about possibly, is there really a difference between when you have to do a video game as opposed to acting on theater or like for a movie or TV? Is there much of a difference, or do you just kind of adjust?
You adjust. And a lot depends on the director and the producer, what they're going for. And for this particular game, the Horizon Zero Dawn that you mentioned, they really wanted to try to get a sort of subtlety in performance and an emotional depth there. And it was very much like a theater production. You know, we were on a sound stage at the Sony soundstage in Playa Vista here in Los Angeles. Beautiful soundstage. And, you know, I don't know if you've ever been in a motion capture soundstage, but they have all these cameras in every corner of this almost airplane hangar type building. It's massive. And, you know, they have all the engineers and you know, they're playing stuff to you that will ultimately be seen by the gamer, the reality they're creating as far as this frozen wilds landscape with, you know, icebergs and waterfalls and this treacherous terrain. And So, and then you're in this motion capture suit, which is, I say it's almost akin to being in kind of like an astronaut suit, because you really feel like you're on another planet with this suit on, and you've got all these, marks on your body, which the designers will then layer costume and extra muscles and everything else to create this cartoonish type figure from you in your performance. So it's capturing all your motion. It's capturing, because you're wearing this headgear as well, with the camera shining in your face, and and it's picking up your vocal performance as well as the twinkle in your eye and your gestures you make with your mouth, and hopefully it's capturing the emotion. And that's what the director and the production were really going for, as far as creating very connected relationships in this reality of Horizon Zero Dawn. They're really trying to get for, because they're creating a mythology,
right?
Like Star Wars. They're creating a whole nother reality. And like George Lucas had to do at the beginning of Star Wars, and saying this is the world, this is the galaxy you're entering into. They had to create a landscape and a reality that the gamers and the players can believe in. And so they created these relationships and these the Banuk tribesmen, and this backstory for Aloy to be suddenly having to survive in. And so they were trying to. I make it. It's somewhat Shakespearean in many ways, because you're dealing with very lofty themes. Kind of like in King Lear, or one of the great historical plays of Shakespeare. It's they're very almost like the Tempest, where they're battling forces beyond their control.
Right.
And so there are forces on the ground in this sort of tribal relationships, and there are forces beyond that they're not sure what's happening. So it is a little bit like the Tempest, where the gods are laughing at you and you have to survive. And so it's very much of a theatrical type of experience in many ways. And eventually, when you're wearing these suits and this headgear, you completely forget about it after a while, and you just have these relationships with the other actors, and you're trying to create very grounded performances.
Now, when you're wearing that suit and you're going through, your lines, and you're trying to imagine this world while you're acting, was it distracting all not to have on like a costume or anything like that, or the other actors themselves not to have any costume, but rather this suit and this headgear and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's all a little silly,
Yeah.
But like anything with acting, it's always a suspension of disbelief anyway. And, this woman that's I'm working with is not my sister. And just what I supposedly look like on the screen. I mean, I'm this, they've drawn my character to be, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and beyond. It's just this hugely muscular, Inuit character. And so you just have to embrace it and enter into that realm of make-believe. It is very much like the make-believe that that inspired you to go into acting initially anyway, like when you're a child and you just play pretend. So you create this world, and you just, after you've been doing this for so many years, when you connect with the other actor and you look at them in the eyes, and you just speak the truth, as Spencer Tracy would say, you just look at them, or Jimmy Cagney would say that, you just look them in the eyes and speak the truth, and you try to get that emotional connection with the other actors, and it could be difficult to get that emotional connection even if you're wearing contemporary clothing. So, I mean, that's the most important thing of all. I mean,
right.
To create relationships that the audience will hopefully care about.
I agree.
So, I mean, after a while, you just forget about all the ridiculous clothing you're wearing or lack of clothing, because these are just these, absurd Velcro-looking suits you're wearing. I mean, they're not a very attractive suits. Nobody looks good in them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So doing this, though, I know you kind of said you just tend to adjust from one form of acting to another, but did you kind of relish this opportunity even though there was an adjustment, or did you have some trepidation at the fact that it was kind of a different medium than maybe you'd been in, at least in a recent sense?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's always a degree of trepidation, especially when you have a big role and you feel like you're a major part of this production.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always a little intimidating because you just carry this weight on you. Well, a lot of the success or failure depends on my performance. So, I mean, there's always a little bit of that psychological tentativeness. But then, once you're in there and you're rehearsing with the other actors and you're getting your nerves out of your system, and then you just relish it. You just relish the opportunity, and you work and prepare and rehearse, and once you become familiar with the other actors and the director and all the technical people that are around you, and you build up this sort of casual relationships with everybody, and then you can relax and really start playing, and you want to deliver the best performance you possibly can. So, you just really relish the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this character of Aratek is such a great role. And when I first auditioned for it, it was a long audition, man. I went in there, and it was a callback, and they had me sticking around for almost 3 hours.
Good Lord.
Reading with all these other actresses who were potentially going to play my sister. And it's strange because a couple of the actresses got cast in the game, but didn't get cast as my sister. And the woman that did get cast as my sister, I had never read with before we actually started shooting or rehearsing. So it was a long, I guess it was great because the producer and director were really wanted me, and I was doing it over and over and over again, this big speech from the beginning of the game. And they just wanted to see how I was with taking direction, and if I could deliver different interpretations of that performance. I could be bigger or more subtle or a little more vulnerable or more angry or whatever colors they wanted to, endow my character with or my performance with. They just wanted to make sure that I was versatile enough to deliver it. So it was a little bit of an arduous callback there. So I thought I'd been through the fire there just in the initial casting of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, we got one for you. After everything was done and taken care of, now the game's out. Did you actually get an opportunity to play it yourself? And if you did, what did you think of your finished product as a performance?
Sadly to say, I haven't played it. But I've heard from friends that really liked it a lot. And I talked to Ashley Birch, who plays Aloy, and she said she played it, and she was very complimentary about the work, and she said she really enjoyed the game. I haven't played it. Have you played it?
Yeah, I have played it. I have not gotten all the way through it. I got into it pretty extensively. My wife actually has played it all the way through, and like I said, I guess I can't speak to the game completely since I didn't completely beat it. But yeah, I was very much into it. Like you said, I think that they did a very good job of making it just very immersive and really draws you into the world experience. Obviously, it's beautiful, aesthetically. And then my wife and my father-in-law they both played it and beat it, and they were just had nothing but great things to say about it. Like you said, it's excellent job of world building, and definitely one of the the top games, I would say, and especially in that genre, and probably at least the past 5 or 6 years that I can think of, and that's just my limited kind of combining their opinion along with the. I probably got about a third of the way through it, and I still have yet to finish it, but plan on it because. So I guess well done to you and your team for the group that you were working with.
Yeah,
great.
That's great to hear. No, I've been communicating, and there's a bunch of people on YouTube and other places that have been talking to me about the game, and that's what they say about the world they created, especially the snow and all the natural elements. Mm-hmm. The designers did an amazing job. I guess even from a year and a half since the initial Horizon Zero Dawn came out, there's been improvements about the landscape design.
Oh yeah, big time.
It's incredible what they do.
As Andrew was saying, my dad was a huge fan of the game, which is my dad is a gamer. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be a gamer myself. But I suggested Horizon Zero Dawn, and he instantly fell in love with the game, the world, and he went out and got out Frozen Wildlands, and he was like, Karrington, you need to play this. I haven't had the time yet, but he speaks very high regards of the game, and when I told him that you'd be on the show, he got really excited. He's like that. He spoke very highly of your character and what you were able to bring to the character. He said he found it very
nice.
He said in a way he thought the character himself was a little humorous, but he said in a way that I can't remember how he exactly worded it, but not exactly like haha funny, but just the way the situationally. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. It's interesting because I know that the game, from what I've seen, and I was part of the production for a couple of months. It's fantastic that Aloy is obviously a female lead.
Yes.
And there's no, especially in light of the political climate or the Me Too movement, that it's just so reverential, and there's no weirdness in whatever about the games that or certain things in pop culture completely sexualize the characters, and it's not that way at all with Aloy. It's not part of that. So
I never thought of that, but you're really right. It's she comes across like you take her very seriously. You don't see her as like this cutesy girl. Like you just see her as an awesome, just another awesome protagonist. And I don't mean just another in a negative sense, but yeah, you definitely don't view her through a jaded lens. It's as her own standalone, and she is hardcore. She is an awesome protagonist for sure.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Yeah, I guess it's similar to what I've been reading about. I haven't seen it, but. They compared the recent remake of the live-action Lara Croft film that Alicia Vikander's in, basically reprising the role of Angelina Jolie, whereas Jolie was certainly looks and the way she dressed was a very sexualized character, whereas Vikander it's much more toned down.
Yes, I can agree with that.
And I think it's just in light of the political climate that we're in. I mean, I think it's a good thing.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
Especially if you're getting young girls to play the game, you want these. I think Aloy is a good role model. Is it somebody who is fearless, and even somebody who looks physically of a smaller stature. She's just incredible. She's incredibly gifted. She uses her mind. She uses her body. She uses all her physical skills and strengths, and she's just fierce warrior. So I think it's a very positive image to put out there.
Kind of getting away. Like there's been a lot of fearsome female warriors, but yeah, most of them are kind of running around in your iron bikinis essentially, as opposed to her actually having appropriate clothing, which is a good point as well.
Yeah.
Now,
true.
Quick question for you: are you a gamer yourself?
I'm not. I mean, it's horrible. I'm being honest with you. So I know it's sort of sacrilegious to have this interview. I hope you still publish this interview.
Oh, no worry. Our last guest, he actually did music for video games. Not a gamer, surprisingly. So you're not the first one.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, I mean, that's...
Yeah, I mean, I'm older. I'm a dad of a teenager. I just we're actually going to go see a film this afternoon. We're going to see that movie Quiet Place.
Oh yes,
the
yes.
horror, the Emily Blunt film.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never gotten into the games. I've done a bunch of them now, and it's funny. I did this weird sort of a parody on the Overwatch. It's called Lego Overwatch, and it's a web series.
Mm-hmm.
And I play a bunch of characters in this. And I went to a rap party for the creators of this series, and in one of the rooms they had all the games to play. I didn't even know how to play it. I was so pathetic. I mean, I was like, is this a joystick? What am I? I was so embarrassed. Here I am voicing these games. I literally do not know how to play.
Oh, it's
all
right.
I need a tutorial.
No, you
Fair enough.
two things. First off, the movie you're going to go see, it's you will not be disappointed. I have no doubt. It's actually one of the better of its type that I've seen in a long time. So I think you'll enjoy that. But
that's what I hear. Yeah.
What was I going to say? No, I guess where do you see? Once again, I know obviously it takes at least two to tango, so to speak. But if you have your way and your choice, do you see yourself getting deeper and deeper into the video game acting industry, or would you prefer to go in a different direction? I guess where would you like to see your career go in the next several years if things go as you would like?
Oh, I'm a bit greedy. I want to do everything.
I
really do. I enjoy it all. I enjoy doing voice acting. I certainly enjoy the games, and I'd even like to get back doing theater. And I keep thinking about that. I used to do a lot of theater, and my daughter's now 16, and so in a year and a half she'll be off to college. And I was thinking, maybe I'll go back and do some theater somewhere, because I used to travel and do regional plays, and here in Los Angeles, it's very difficult to make a living as an actor doing theater. But I really miss live audience, and it's just nothing like it, as far as just the thrill you get being on stage. But I mean, certainly, everyone wants to be, a star. I'd love to, have Matt Damon's career where you just being mailed scripts. I want a career where I don't have to audition anymore. That would be, I'd be very happy about that.
So in the motion capture world, do we need to put Andy Serkis on notice? Are you coming for him, or?
Yeah, baby. Better call Andy right away. I'm going to take his gigs.
Now, I was able to watch your film Prodigy, and I gotta say it was an awesome film. It was a slow burn, but I felt like as the movie itself went on, the more interesting and the more it grabbed my attention. Now, could you talk about like how the process to how you got that role, and what was it like? Basically, you're basically just acting with this little girl the entire time.
Yeah, it was the traditional way. I auditioned against 100 or 200 people, and then I had a callback that was actually with the girl that got cast, Savannah Lyles, as the young Prodigy, and just to make sure we had the right chemistry. And then we had about a month or two before we actually started shooting, and I think they were just making sure they had the funds for it, as well as building the sets. So I had time to ruminate and prepare for the shoot and prepare my character. And it was great. It was good. It was, the girl, Savannah Lyles, was only 9 years old when we started shooting.
Wow.
And it was a lot for her to take on. I know. Initially the role was written for a young boy, and the directors, Alex and Brian, couldn't find a young male actor that could handle the material or didn't have the emotional depth of the material. And so they opened it up to young girls, and Savannah just knocked their socks off, and just and she was great. She worked with her mom, and she had an acting coach. And it's a huge role, and the dialogue has to flow off, off her tongue, and has to be very natural. And so it's a matter of, educating Savannah about what she was saying, why she was saying it. Obviously, the usual questions one asks as an actor. But in this particular case, there were a lot of words that she didn't actually know the meaning of. So you have to explain why she's speaking this way, and she's supposed to be this uber genius. And it was a very intense shoot. It was for the most part, we shot the whole movie in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Two straight weeks of 12, 14-hour days, and the first week was just all me and Savannah. It was all our scenes. And the second week, the other cast members were brought in, the ones who were working in the military and the other therapists there, and so that was a little bit of a relief for me to have these other actors, that it wasn't completely between me and Savannah. There was more bodies, more people I can play with. But it was an intense shoot. It really was. But fortunately, we did have the time to prepare, and I had time to discuss the part with the directors and make sure we were all on the same page.
That's awesome. That's incredible. Yeah, because I was sitting there and I was watching it, prepping for this interview, and I was not expecting how good it was. I was just kind of expecting maybe in like your average film, but as it went on, I'm like, wow, that was actually really good. And I started telling my friends about it. I'm like, you guys got to check this movie out. You guys are going to really enjoy this.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome.
So glad you liked it. Thank you.
I loved it. But yeah, and it was really the whole relationship between you and Savannah that really, I think, drove the whole emotion of the film, that almost like cat and mouse game that you guys seem to play off of each other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, I just see the character as a father, this bereaved dad, but then it's compounded by all these other qualities. But that's the one thing that the directors worked with me as far as the character, making sure that we had the right disposition and even-keeled nature of the therapist, and making sure I wasn't I didn't get frustrated or angry. I was always very almost zen-like in my responses to her sometimes bratty behavior.
Yeah.
So he becomes a very empathetic, he's just very empathetic, and he's a wounded soul in many ways. So I think that the trauma that he has personally suffered is something that he carries with him, and in a way endows him with maybe a higher kind of intuition and compassion for other people who've also been somewhat traumatized.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So on a role like this, like how would you say you prepare? Or I mean, are you just seasoned enough, veteran as it were, that you pretty well can get into the head of a character pretty rapidly, or do you typically take some time to get into a certain state of mind? Do you have to do certain things to get there, or what's your typical process if you have one?
Well, it all depends on the part. For Fonda, it's hard to explain, but it's I mean, there are things about him that just seem very easy for me to relate to, and they I mean, in a way, you look at a character and you see how similar you are to them. And then you, in a way, you see the things that may be a little bit different or heightened or repressed. But I think we all, as actors, play ourselves in many ways. I mean, they're just, like keys on a piano that you would never be playing normally. normally. I think we all have the potential for, a full range of experiences and emotions and understandings. I mean, even if you're playing a psychotic individual, I think that we all have those tendencies, and we can relate to somebody who and understand why a person does what they do. For me, the therapist was he's similar to me in that we're both fathers, and the suffering that he has experienced, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I can really imagine. So your imagination is something that certainly plays a role in it, and so you embrace that imaginary circumstance. In a way, you go there and imagine something like that happening to you and how that would affect you, and that quality or that pain is something that you can carry with you and have it somewhat sitting there dormant,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not fully expressed, but somehow you're carrying this weight with you. And so I think we all try to be honest in our performances. We try to, once you're in front of the camera, you are listening, your attention is off yourself, you're responding to your circumstances, you're responding to the other actor. And so you try to be, because the camera is this microscope that's picking up every little gesture on your face. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to be grounded and be truthful. I mean, you are always going for, a truthful performance. And how do you do that if a character is that different than you are? I think we're all playing versions of ourselves, but there's just somewhat more heightened, or we're just people that had different circumstances in our life. I mean, even a character like the one in Horizon Zero Dawn, I approach it in a realistic way.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I was living in this post-apocalyptic world of and being chased by these animal machines that want to devour me and kill my brothers and sisters. I mean, it sounds on the surface something so fantastic and unimaginable, but you can understand something like that in a very visceral way.
Mm-hmm.
We've all felt threatened. And so you just make the threat something that you can believe, because the camera is going to see your reaction. It doesn't matter if you're reacting to some ridiculous cyborg creation that's out of some Dutch designer's mind,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's just, a girl that has telekinetic powers that might be able to, cause you to have a heart attack, or whatever it is that she's doing. I mean, she's putting me in a dangerous situation in the movie, but you can understand what that would be like to be threatened. So you just play the emotions. You play the emotions that you can personally understand. Even if those situations are heightened, you have to be able to imagine them being real. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Essentially it's you draw from the self, but then you use your own imagination basically to try to establish empathy and a true deep understanding with the character you're trying to portray. Is that kind of a short version? Am I getting it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the empathy for Fonda is certainly his guiding, is sort of his MO. Empathy is what he sees this young girl that reminds him of his own daughter, so he completely has this connection with her and cares about her. So in a way, as John Lennon would say, all you need is love. And that's sort of what that kind of guided my character, if you connect to her and show the vulnerability of this character and the humanity of this character, and then we can win over the hearts and minds of the authoritarian figures that are trying to basically do her in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's very That's very cool. No, I appreciate you sharing that with us. That's kind of neat to get inside the thought process of someone who's done this for a long time. That's pretty cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
So, Richard, we're going to wrap things up here tonight. We can't thank you enough for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So for everyone that's all of our listeners out there, where can they find you if they want to keep up with you, whether it be social media, or do you have any projects coming up that we should be looking out for?
Well, I've got, I just did a voice performance for a new graphic anthology series that's going to be on Netflix. So I don't even know the title of it, but Tim Miller from who directed Deadpool directed it. So so that's supposed to come out at the end of the year or early next year. These things can take so long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so. And I've got a couple other films coming out, sort of a noir sci-fi film that it's called Clyde Cooper. So maybe I could be back on the show to talk about that
Absolutely,
at a
dude.
future
That'd be
date.
awesome.
Yeah, sure. And they could find me. I'm on Twitter at Richard Neal at rnealactor, and you can find me on Facebook as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. We cannot wait for those projects to come out. We'll definitely keep our eyes out for them.
For sure.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for your time. And everyone out there, as always, have a rad day.